Morning, everybody. Gary Schwartz here at RSA Conference in San Francisco. I am here with Tom Pace, founder and CEO of NetRise. Tom, how's it going today?
It's going good. We're hitting the ground running. It's formally day 2 of RSA, so we're off to the races. It's the start of the day.
That's awesome, Tom. What I'm hearing a lot so far in a couple of days here at RSA is there's obviously a lot of talk about AI. Right? AI is eating the world, and there feels like there's a resurgence of conversation about SBOMs. What's your take on that?
Yeah, AI is obviously the hot item of conversation. We had a big acquisition announcement this week, so that's been a big ticket item. We also have a lot of the research coming out about AI generated code and some of the pros and cons associated with that. And I think that's one of the elements that has really brought SBOM back into the front burner of the conversation. From our perspective, it never left the front burner. Obviously, this is what we do for a living, but it does seem that the third-party risk aspects of organizations are really paying attention to this. And so, if they're paying attention to the security of the LLMs and the models in which they're getting from these AI companies, why would they not also pay attention and care about the data that those models and LLMs are generating for their own purposes? So I think there's some coupling there associated with how we're seeing this, much more prioritization of the software transparency.
That's interesting. I'm really interested in what's going on with the SBOM. I know NetRise has kind of a unique way of looking at that. Most of the supply chain security companies that I'm familiar with, have been familiar with, it's all shift left, right? It's all inside the developer life cycle.
Yeah.
Talk to us about NetRise's approach to SBOM and why shift right is the direction that everybody really should think about.
Yeah, first off, we're not telling people not to analyze or evaluate their source code, right? That obviously makes sense to do. However, shifting right gives you a new perspective in terms of understanding the risks that are 100% present in that final piece of software. If you look at the actual compiled code at the end of the day, that's going to give you ground truth, absolute certainty. If you find an issue there, it's there. If you find an issue in the source code, maybe it's in the final application, maybe it's not, for a number of reasons. And so, shifting right, the big reason it's really didn't take off maybe earlier is just it's a very, very difficult technical problem, and it requires significant expertise in a number of different ways. But being able to get visibility into that final thing matters to both people building software and people buying software, but for different reasons. For people buying software, it gives them actual insights and data to support. Do I want to buy this piece of software? What is the actual risk associated with this software? Do I want to ensure that I don't have any end-of-life components, any end-of-support components, things like that? For the people building software or firmware, the big concern there is, okay, are my source code solutions finding everything they should be finding? But in addition, these enterprises are reaching out to these software builders and basically saying, hey, we need better transparency from you guys in terms of what's actually in these things that you're selling us. And we need an SBOM as one of those artifacts. And that really only matters to the enterprise if they can get that from compiled code either shipped right. Giving the enterprise an SBOM from source code is not helpful or relevant to the enterprise, because that's not what is in the enterprise environment. So those are some of the reasons why we pursued a shift right. Not to mention the shift left area is just incredibly crowded. A lot of great companies, but being able to differentiate yourself in that particular market is incredibly difficult. So we've pursued a much harder problem that provides a lot more value to folks.
So that's really interesting, Tom, because what you're describing, in effect, is like a nutrition label on software. And most enterprises, they've got the labels that they put on all the hardware they buy, right? They've got their hardware asset inventory. Do they have software asset inventories, and do they need that?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Nobody questions the validity or utilization of an asset inventory, right? That's why it's critical security control number one. It goes back to you can't protect what you don't see. You can't protect something if you don't know where it is, right? This is very obvious. However, critical security control number two is software inventory. Yet, I have yet to meet a single organization that has a comprehensive software inventory. Most organizations don't even have an application inventory. And so the distinction I'm drawing here is an application inventory is just that. It's a list of all the applications that are in your environment. Zoom, Adobe Reader, Microsoft Office, a browser, whatever it is. A true software inventory is all of those applications but broken down into their requisite pieces and parts. Here are the libraries, here are the dependencies, here are the open source components. And then layering on top of that all of the metadata that's important around the overall risk associated with those pieces and parts. And what is that a fancy way of saying? That's a fancy way of saying an SBOM for those things. So having an SBOM derived software inventory is just really, it should be equally as table stakes as having an asset inventory, because it really has the exact same premise. You can't protect what you can't see. You can't make risk decisions on incomplete data. And so without it, how are you properly ascertaining the level of exposure that you have within your organization?
That's awesome. I mean, they can see there's a real use case. Enterprises use that because they're buying all this from third parties. So their third party risk teams need to know like what they're buying, what they're making available, right?
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, third-party risk has been an incredibly underserved area within security teams. I mean, anyone who's ever gone through a third-party risk process knows whether you've been doing it or been a part of some, bringing something into another organization. It is a immature process at best. They send you a questionnaire that you're basically self-attesting to, which, I mean, we all hope that everyone's honest and transparent about the things that you're being asked, but at the end of the day, people are typically going to answer those questionnaires in such a way so they get to the next stage of the process. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And so what we're doing is giving third-party risk teams actual data to make actual decisions about, hey, how actually risky is this thing? And so then it's up to them to apply whatever gating mechanisms, whatever process, whatever feedback loop they want to either get these things fixed, get them remediated, implement some compensating or mitigating controls. But right now, they just have no ability to do that because they don't have appropriate visibility to make those decisions.
So what you're saying is trust and verify. Heard that before.
Yeah, trust and verify. Exactly. I mean, this is not, we're not over here reinventing the wheel, right? This is, what's really fascinating to me is, sometimes we get objections like, oh, well, I have other priorities, things like what? And this is not a new problem, right? This isn't some like wildly innovative, leading edge set of technical solutioning that we're trying to do, right? This is one of the oldest problems that has ever existed in just technology, not even cybersecurity. The problem has been there hasn't been a good way to do it. There hasn't been a good way to generate this data for people to make these decisions. So trust and verify is something that the cybersecurity has hung their hat on for decades now at this point. And so we're really just applying an old standard and old reference architecture to a new set of capabilities that can solve that problem.
That's awesome. So I'm going to switch gears here. So, excuse the pun, but NetRise is on the rise right now. There's been a lot of news coming out from the organization. Can you walk our listeners through really all the excitement that's going on in NetRise right now?
Yeah, sure. So, the big news a couple weeks ago, we announced our Series A, which we're very excited about. That'll really help, fuel our go-to-market growth. We had an incredible year last year. We're capitalizing on that momentum, pulling us through 2025. In addition, we've had a number of hires on our executive team. Gary is one of those. We're very, very happy you're here, Gary. You've been absolutely incredible. So keep it up. We've also hired a VP of Partnerships and Business Development, Robin Robbins, who we're who's also hit the ground sprinting, and then also hired our chief revenue officer, Rick Beebe, who just has a unbelievable track record in terms of working with early stage cybersecurity companies. And then lastly, today or yesterday rather, we announced NetRise Zero Lens, which is our approach to identifying weaknesses in compiled code that can lead to exploitability and issues that are unknown to both end users and software builders at the same time. So a lot of good traction, a lot of good momentum.
That's awesome. Zero Lens really, I'm excited about that because here was a game changer for me. Right, we're looking at weaknesses that people haven't identified because they're not CVEs, they're not what they're waiting to be exposed. So it's a real important complement to core platforms.
Yeah, I mean it's really just additional visibility, right? Finding weaknesses and potential paths to exploitability in source code is, that's a solved problem. I mean, there's just a number of vendors who are doing that in a number of different ways. Doing this for compiled code is a significantly more difficult problem, right? If you can do this reliably, you basically have an ability to find zero days in a number of types of assets, whether they're Windows applications, containers, or whatever it is. So it's a very complementary way to also figure out is this vulnerability actually present and can it be exploited in this thing? So in addition to finding net new issues, you're also able to validate existing issues with this technology. So there's a number of ways in which this complements what we're doing.
That's super exciting, Tom. Listen, thanks very much for taking the time with us, with our audience today. I just want to remind everyone, look, you can hear behind us, we are the buzz for what's happening. RSA CRN named us one of the top 10 products to come soon at the conference. We are at the Grove all week. And the Grove's on 3rd and Mission, just around the corner from Moscone Center. Come see all the excitement that we've got NetRise, because there's a lot going on here. This is where the action is at the Grove this year.
Stop by, come on in, get a drink, get something to eat, have a chit chat, stop on by.
All right, top place, thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, everybody.